For many of us, social psychology is the most interesting field of psychology. Social psychology is the branch of psychology that deals with how we have social interactions and social thoughts, what we think of ourselves, what we think about other people, how we behave in groups, how we think about different groups, and so on. And it's just extremely interesting. It's interesting both because these are intrinsically interesting topics, everybody's interested in themselves, but also because social psychologists have come up with some really cool findings. So just as some examples to start us off, these are pictures of Tony Blair and Barack Obama. And if you ask people explicitly who's more American, they find this a funny question because Obama's American, was American president, and Tony Blair is not. But if you look at unconscious biases and stereotypes, various studies find that Tony Blair is thought of as more American because, due to the color of his skin, many people think of him as more American. Or think about subtle influences. One very cool finding is that we are often influenced by factors outside of our control. Sometimes it's called social priming. So for instance, in one classic study, it turns out that if you're asked to judge a candidate for a job and you're holding warm coffee in your hands as you do it, you're slightly more likely to judge the candidate as a warm person. While if you're holding cold coffee, you'll judge the candidate as a cold person. Or as a third example, there's some evidence that we have a form of implicit egoism. So when asked about our favorite letter is more often than one would expect by chance to be the first letter of our first or last name. More than that, psychologists find that the sort of people who move to Georgia are more likely than you'd expect to have G in their name. Or those who become lawyers are more likely, in fact, to have L in their name. And you could say that one reason why I'm a psychologist is that my first name is Paul. Now, these studies, as of late, have generated a lot of scrutiny. And many have argued that the more sexy findings from social psychology, particularly those involving social priming, are not fully robust. That is, through no fault, no fraud, nothing wrong on the part of researchers, but just because of various failures to replicate. There's some reason to believe that the sexier findings of social psychology may not hold up. Because of this, as I outline the research in social psychology, I'm going to stick for the most part on traditional findings, which I think are reasonably rock solid. And we'll see that these are quite interesting enough in telling us about human nature and how we live in groups.